3 years ago, this would take a team 6 months, and now it takes an afternoon and a couple of prompts. But there is an uncomfortable question that nobody wants to address right now. If everyone can code, the code itself is basically free. What is the actual moat? How do I differentiate myself from everyone else? For 30 years, the moat was simple. It was the code. If you could build it and the other person couldn't, you won. Their skill was the wall, and that wall kept everyone else out. But now that wall has gone. But I now have to be honest with you, because everyone making videos right now is trying to sell you the dream. AI didn't give you a superpower. It gave everyone the same superpower at the same time. All it did was shift the skill gap downstream. When everyone can build the same thing, building it is no longer your advantage. So the question really isn't can you build it? You can. So can they. The question is now, once it is built, who can monetize it the fastest? This is now the entire game. The moat is not your idea, because ideas are cheap and you know it. The moat is not the first version of your app. Everyone has a decent first version now. The moat is how fast you can go from the version people might use to the version that people will pay for. And those are two completely different products that happen to look identical from the outside. The version people might use is free, it's clever, it may get you a couple of sign-ups and a bit of attention when you stick it on Product Hunt. The version of your app that people actually pay for solves their problems so specifically they'd feel the loss if you tuck it away. Getting from one to the other fast, that is the skill that is actually rare right now. And it comes down to two core things: how you design the thing and how you change it. We have to take these one at a time because the first pretty much decides whether the second is even possible. Architecture. A lot of people will hear that word and think it's some mundane engineering feat that AI already covers and isn't relevant to ship an MVP fast. But it is the opposite. Architecture is actually where your unique moat lives, because real architecture isn't only writing code, it's deciding in plain English what your system is actually made of and which tool does which job within your solution. Red is here so the app doesn't crawl, celery workers so slow jobs run in the background instead of freezing the user. A vector database when your search has to understand meaning, not just match keywords, and maybe even residential proxies when you're pulling data from sites that block bots. That judgment, knowing what to actually reach for and when, is a skill that hasn't yet been commoditized. Because here's what AI does: it gives you the generic version, the fastest to give you your minimum viable product. AI will not reach for residential proxies or a vector database unless you know they exist and you ask for them. So the person just typing build me an app gets exactly what every other person typing that gets: identical and replaceable. You design the system in English, you make the calls, AI just executes them. And those calls, the ones that AI can't make on its own, that is your functionality. That is your IP. That is the moat a generic productivity tool cannot hand to its competitor. And there's a second payoff. When you've designed it as clean and separate pieces, each part of your product, each step of your funnel is an individual section that can be iterated without breaking the entire test. Fast, which is the core game of the next pillar. And the system you designed on purpose records the data you actually need. So when it is time to pivot, you're reading real numbers you can understand in particular parts of your software, where people drop off, what they pay for, instead of just guessing, which is the second thing: iteration. If architecture is your chassis, iteration is the engine that monetizes your build, and many do run it poorly. Most people treat the launch as a finish line, build it in private for months, polish it, and then reveal. That's not really iteration, it's just an expensive bet that you're only placing once. As real iteration feels embarrassing, you ship something smaller than you're actually comfortable with. You watch real people use it, and then you find the parts that they actually care about and you sharpen them, and then you ship again and again. And the direction is everything. You are not iterating towards better or nicer, you must iterate towards will pay. Every single loop, you are asking the only question that matters: is this closer to something people would put their card down for? The person shipping a small change every week runs 25 loops before the perfect launch person finishes one of them. 25 chances to find what people pay for, as opposed to one big guess. But the link between the two: you can only loop that fast if changing things is cheap, and changing things is only ever cheap if you've actually designed your system in clean separate places to begin with. If you skip the architecture skill, you end up strangling your biggest advantage and you throttle the speed of learning, of what people are actually going to pay for. And this signal has to be real, not just your opinion, what people actually come back for, what they'd miss, and what they'd actually pay for. Action over words, because money is the only feedback that is true. Someone who actually found their moat by refusing to stay a toy, Alex Mashrabov ran generative AI at Snap. They'd bought his last company for around 166 million. So when Higgsfield started, he knew AI video cold. And in 2025, AI video was mostly slop. It was fun and viral, but it was forgettable. He could have built another little consumer toy, a CapCut clone, pumping out clips people generate once and never pay for. That's the version people might use. But he went in a completely different direction. Web first, professional. He built the boring stuff marketeers actually needed in the moment, such as approvals, storyboards, shared team workspaces, brand consistent outputs. This is what a generic AI tool would never give you, and it became his moat. Now 88% of his power users do commercial work, and some agencies pay him $200,000 a year. 11 million in revenue to 100 million in 6 months. That is literally iteration with a direction towards money. So, everyone can code now. The code was never the moat. It just looked like one because it was hard. Now it's easy and the wall everyone hid behind is gone. What's left is speed, but not how fast you build your first version, but how fast you get from the version people might use to the version people pay for. Decide what your system is actually built out of on purpose, in plain English, that's architecture, and the moat AI won't give anyone else. Then change it relentlessly towards money on real signal, that is iteration. One is your chassis, the other is your engine, you need both. If you get that right, you can stop competing on who can build and start compounding on who can monetize.